Good evening and welcome to our April 25th Transportation and Parking Commission meeting. We'll start, please, our roll call.
Commissioner Kirkjian?
Here.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Here.
Commissioner Sahakian?
Here.
Commissioner Bartusov?
Here.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Here. And if we'll please stand for our flag salute, Ms. Mia Yun will take it over, please.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The posting of the agenda for our April 25th meeting has occurred, and we're going to transition to review of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of our February 22nd meeting? Okay, hearing none, I would welcome a motion to approve the minutes as we've received them.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any objections? Okay, the motion carries. I have no oral communications. Nothing has been given to us from the public, only as it relates to the next item, number 5. So we'll transition right into agenda item number 5A. And there is a speaker for that item. Rubik, you will start this out. Public hearing 5A.
Chair Gonzalez will have Anush read it into the record.
Okay, thank you.
Item 5 is a public hearing, and item 5A is a report regarding application for renewal of an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in the city of Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Checker Cab. At 5A1 is a motion to approve the application with findings for an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Checker Cab.
Good.
Chair Gonzalez, members of the commission, I will ask Steve Rodriguez from our Community Development Department to provide a brief presentation. We have 3 of these items back to back, so you could either, at the end of the first presentation, if you want to pose questions, or you can wait till the third item because they're very similar in nature.
Is that okay with the commissioners, or would the commissioners like a different process? Sounds like that's good. Thank you, Rubik. Please.
Thank you, Chairman Gonzalez. The report regarding application for renewal of an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in the city of Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Checker Cab. Motion to approve the application with findings for an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Checker Cab. Background: on July 23rd, 2015, the Development Department received a renewal application for an owner's permit by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Checker Cab, to operate 8 taxi cab vehicles in Glendale. The applicant submitted the application within the time frame specified in the Glendale Municipal Code. Checker Cab is a duly incorporated business in the state of California. The applicant has provided a certificate of domestic stock ownership and current certificate of good standing, which has been verified by city staff. The applicant states that the business address is 7955 San Fernando Road, Sun Valley, California. The color scheme of the vehicles is a white body with a white top, roof, hood, and trunk. The lettering is black, indicating Checker Cab Company on both rear passenger sides and the rear bumper of the vehicle. At least one rate card is posted in each vehicle, and their rates are identical to all other taxi cab companies currently operating in the city of Glendale. Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc. was incorporated in the state of California on January 2nd, 1997. The applicant has been operating Checker Cab in the city of Glendale since 1997. The president of the company, Timmy Monterosian, has extensive experience in taxi cab and other type of public transportation services. Checker Cab is currently licensed to operate taxi services in Pasadena and Burbank. If Checker Cab is approved for renewal for an owner's permit to operate taxi cab vehicles within the city of Glendale, proof of insurance will be subject to review and approved by the City of Glendale's Risk Management Office. Checker Cab is an extensive training program for its supervisors, dispatchers, customer service representatives, and drivers. Checker Cab comprehensive training program for its drivers include procedures and policies, emergency procedures, driver and passenger safety, passenger assistance techniques, defensive driving, behind the wheel training, sensitivity and empathy training, and customer service. Tri-City Transportation System, Inc. has a drug testing program in place and all of its existing taxi cab operations that meet the requirements of the state of California. Checker Cab proposes to continue to operate 8 taxi cab vehicles in Glendale. The applicant described the vehicles as being hybrid 4-seat passenger sedans as well as 6-seat passenger vans. The applicant provides a list in Exhibit C. Currently, all the vehicles are within the 8-year age limit. No notices of violation have been issued for Checker Cab by the City of Glendale. The application provides one written professional reference and one written personal reference. References were verified by staff and were positive. Checker Cab has a state-of-the-art computerized dispatch system. Other areas of special programs include the use of alternative fuels, guaranteed ride-home programs, provide service for ADA-eligible passengers. Tri-City Transportation System, Inc. has launched the Curb mobile application in all taxi cab fleet in the Tri-City area of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena. Tri-City has a Don't Drink and Drive campaign which provides discounts on their website during holidays. Currently, 50% of Checker Cab fleet is comprised of hybrid vehicles. Checker Cab is committed to replace their vehicles in the coming years to meet the air quality goals of the city. The application requests to review an existing owner's permit for Checker Cab. Therefore, public convenience and necessity has previously been demonstrated in the issuance of an owner's permit for 8 vehicles permits to Checker Cab. In 2014, Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc. provided over 163 trips to the cities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena, combined while maintaining an on-time service ratio of over 90% service within 15 minutes or less. The applicant's statement of public convenience and necessity is attached in Exhibit D. Currently, the City of Glendale has a taxi cab cap of 82. Thus, no more than 82 taxi cabs are allowed to legally operate in the city at one time. Unless the TPC or City Council alters the cap, at this time, 82 taxi cabs have received permits to operate in the city. Since Checker Cab wishes to renew permits to operate 8 vehicles and not increase their fleet in the city, and since they are in good standing and have satisfied all conditions required per the Glendale Municipal Code for our owner's permit, staff respectively recommends that the TPC approve the application for renewal of an owner's permit. A motion recommending approval is attached for the Commissioner's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions by commissioners on this recommendation? Okay. There is a request to speak, and this would be an appropriate time to request that, since there are no comments or questions so far from the commissioners. Mr. Gantus, I believe you wanted to speak on Agenda 5A.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman. I will also. Well, everything has been said in the report. We obviously are in agreement with everything said in the report, and you have all the information. I'm available if you have any questions, but I have nothing to add.
Very good. Thank you very much. So, Commissioners, there is a draft motion in our packet. Any discussion before that's potentially on the table?
I actually do have two questions, if I may.
Please.
I noticed on page 4 of the report under special programs, it says other areas of special programs include the use of alternative fuels for the taxi fleets. And I noticed it says this in the following permit request as well. So can somebody elaborate on what that means? I'm noticing on the list of vehicles, they're hybrid vehicles, so I assume they just use gasoline.
CNG.
CNG.
Hybrid.
Hybrid CNGs?
No.
No, honestly, I'm sorry. They're hybrids. That's what they are. Whatever hybrids do. I'm not an expert in hybrids.
Okay. I'm curious.
They are. I'm not an expert in hybrids.
Okay, and then I'd like to get clarification on that. And then I noticed on the list of vehicles that you're using, the second vehicle is crossed out, but you are requesting 8 permits. So
there is. We have acquired that vehicle. Has been acquired. It just hasn't been gone through all of the hoops and whistles. We asked for an extension from staff, and staff has given us an extension until July 1 to replace that. The vehicle's been applied. We haven't had it inspected and licensed and all that other stuff. But it is in the works.
Can you tell us just verbally what kind of make and model?
I don't know the make and model.
Okay.
I do know it is a van.
Okay.
It will be a new van, so that we will then be up to the 3 vans that we've indicated in the report were there.
Okay.
And I will get you your answer on hybrid vehicles for the next, unless you want it before this one.
Sure.
I can step out and make a call as to what that is.
Yeah, to clarify, it says alternative fuels, so I'm just curious if there's something other than gasoline that your vehicles are using.
I will find out, and I apologize for not having that, but it'll take me just a few moments, and you can want to hold off, I'll be right back.
No worries.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes,
I have a
Maura?
quick question, Rubik. It's been some time since we've visited the taxi cab
Licensing.
permits, right? So a couple questions. Has there been a change in the code about requirements for hybrid vehicles for taxis, or is this just they're taking their own initiative? I remember the last time it had been.
Commissioner Yakubian, there has not been in the recent years any change to the code. As it was adopted by the Commission and City Council, the code requirements remain the same. If you see a larger participation of hybrid or we'll find out alternative vehicles, it's at the offering of the vendor.
Okay, very good. That's good to know. The second question is, what was the procedure where 3 of their vehicles are, and I guess this would apply for any that's coming in front of us, 3 vehicles, I think they're on their 8th year for 3 of their vehicles, 2008. How much time do they have to change those out?
To replace the vehicles?
Replace the vehicles?
I'll
Okay,
defer to Steve.
the first 5 years we inspect, and then the next 3 it's outside mechanic. But once it hits the 9th year, they can't use it, so they'll have to replace it and get a new one.
I see.
So you're to have to answer that. It's 8 years, a limit. It's an 8-year limit, and once it meets its 9th year, then they have to replace it.
I see. And then a general question. Is it my imagination, or have the number of taxi cab companies consolidated, or have there's fewer of them from previous meetings we've had? We had a larger number of taxi cab operators. Am I mistaken? Or
Commissioner Yakubian, I believe the number of operators are the same, more than likely, and it's the trend across the country, and the number of taxi cabs may have been reduced that operate within the city of Glendale or elsewhere. If that's your question.
All of them review at the same time, but I think we're doing only 3 now, and then we'll have more coming our way.
Oh yes.
but the list, I think on this list, right? These were not the. Just from my knowledge, so Exhibit B, those are the total number of providers. Am I correct?
Yeah.
That list.
They're listed down below.
They
But just 5 of them.
They reached the 82 number.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember there used to be
Yeah, we've had
a lot
5.
more than 5 providers, I thought. It was only 5?
I don't recall more than
No?
5 in
Okay,
Glendale. No, it
very
was
good.
always
Just for
5, yeah.
just for my knowledge, very
No,
good.
there have not been more than that.
Very good. Thank you.
And I do have an answer, Commissioner. I'm going to try this. Bartrasov. Yes. Did I do it right? Electric and gas. Hybrid. Electric and gas. I don't know about alternative fuels.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on this particular request and recommendation? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion as drafted and recommended by staff, which is in our packet.
I'll go ahead and move 5A1.
Is there a second to the motion,
I'll
please?
second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Kirkjian?
Yes.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian?
Yes.
Commissioner Bartosov?
Yes.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Yes. Okay, if we can please move to 5B. Anisha, if you would please introduce that
Of course.
for the record.
At 5B is a report regarding application for renewal of an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in the city of Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Yellow Cab. At 5B1 is a motion to approve the application with findings for an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Yellow Cab.
Please.
Commissioners, report regarding application for renewal of owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in the city of Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, DBA Yellow Cab. Motion to approve the application with findings for owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in Glendale by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Yellow Cab. On July 23, 2015, the Community Development Department received a renewal application for owner's permit by Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc., DBA Yellow Cab, to operate 17 taxi cabs vehicles in Glendale. The applicant submitted the application within the time frame specified in the Glendale Municipal Code. Yellow Cab is a duly incorporated business in the state of California. The applicant has provided a certificate of domestic stock ownership and a current certificate of good standing, which has been verified by city staff. The application states that the business address is 7955 San Fernando Road, Sun Valley, California. The color scheme of the vehicles is a yellow body with the yellow top, roof, hood, and trunk. The lettering is black, indicating Yellow Cab Company across both rear passenger doors and the rear bumper of the vehicle. At least one rate card is posted in each vehicle, and these rates are identical to all other taxi cab companies currently operating in the city of Glendale. Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc. was incorporated in the state of California on July 2, 1997. The applicant has been operating Yellow Cab in the city of Glendale since 1997. The president of the company, Timmy Mondriosian, has extensive experience in taxi cab and other types of public transportation services. Yellow Cab is currently licensed to operate taxi cab services in Pasadena and Burbank. If Yellow Cab is approved for a new owner's permit to operate taxi cab vehicles within the city of Glendale, proof of insurance will be subject to the review and approval by the City of Glendale's Risk Management Office. Yellow Cab has an extensive training program for its supervisors, dispatchers, customer services representatives, and drivers. Yellow Cab comprehensive training program for its drivers include procedures and policies, emergency procedures, driver and passenger safety, passenger assistance, techniques, defense driving, behind the wheel training, sensitivity and empathy training, and customer service. Tri-City Transportation System, Inc. has a drug testing program in place for all of its existing taxi cab operations that meet the requirements of the state of California. Yellow Cab proposes to continue to operate 17 taxi cab vehicles in Glendale. The applicant describes the vehicles as being hybrid 4-seat passenger sedans, as well as a 6-seat passenger van. The applicant provided a list in Exhibit C. Currently, all the vehicles are within the 8-year requirement. No notice of violation has been issued to Yellow Cab by the City of Glendale. The application provided one written professional reference and one written personal reference. References were verified by staff and were positive. Yellow Cab has a state-of-the-art computerized dispatch system. Other areas of special programs include the use of alternative fuels, guaranteed ride-home programs, providing service to ADA-eligible passengers. Tri-City Transportation System, Inc. has launched this curb mobile application all taxi cab fleets in the Tri-City area of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena. Tri-City has a Don't Drink and Drive campaign which provides discounts on their websites during holidays. Currently, 82% of Yellow Cab's fleet is comprised of hybrid vehicles. Yellow Cab is committed to replace their vehicles in the coming years to meet the air quality goals of the city. This application requests us to renew existing owner's permit for Yellow Cab. Therefore, public convenience and necessity have previously been demonstrated in the issuance of an owner's permit for 17 vehicle permits to Yellow Cab. In 2014, Tri-City Transportation System, Inc. provided over 163,000 trips in the cities of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena combined, while maintaining an on-time service ratio of over 90% service within 15 minutes or less. Also provides one six-seat passenger van for larger passenger loads. The application statement of public convenience and necessity is attached in Exhibit D. Since Yellow Cab wishes to renew permits to operate 17 vehicles and not increase their fleet in the city, and since they are in good standing and have satisfied all conditions required of the Glendale Municipal Code for an owner's permit, staff respectively recommends that the TPC approves the application renewal of the owner's permit. A motion recommending approval is attached to the Commissioner's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions or comments for staff on this recommendation?
I do. I have a question about any passengers you may have that use a bicycle. If somebody called and said they need a ride, but they also have a bicycle with them, are you able to accommodate possibly using your minivan?
Yeah, the vans would probably take care of it.
Okay. And is the rate for the minivan the same as the other passenger vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Oh, John Gantus, Gantus, on behalf of Tri-City again.
Any other questions of staff, please, on the staff report? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Gantus, you had requested to speak on 5B.
I did. Thank you again, John Gantus, on behalf of Tri-City Transportation Systems, Inc. Again, everything's in the report. I think we've had a couple of questions. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer, but I have nothing to add.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions or comments for the applicant? Okay, hearing none. There is a draft motion recommended by staff in our packet. I would entertain a motion, please.
Move item 5B1.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Kirkjian?
Yes.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian?
Yes.
Commissioner Bartusov?
Yes.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Yes. Moving right along, we're going to go to 5C. Anush, please.
At 5C is a report regarding application for renewal of an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in the city of Glendale by Georgie Enterprises, Inc., DBA People's Taxi. At 5C1 is a motion to approve the application with findings for an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in Glendale by Georgie Enterprises, Inc., DBA People's Taxi.
Chairperson, Commissioners, report regarding application for renewal of an owner's permit to operate taxi cab services in the city of Glendale by Georgie Enterprises, Inc., DBA People Taxi. Motion to approve the application with findings for an owner's permit to operate taxi cab service in Glendale by Gorgie Enterprises, Inc., DBA People's Taxi. On July 23, 2015, the Community Development Department received a renewal application for the owner's permit by Gorgie Enterprises, Inc., DBA People's Taxi, to operate 30 taxi cabs with vehicles in Glendale. The applicant submitted the application within the time frame specified in the Glendale Municipal Code. People's Taxi is a duly incorporated business in the state of California. The applicant has provided a certificate of domestic stock ownership and is current certified of good standing, which has been verified by the city staff. The application states that the business address is 1157 East Green Street, Pasadena, California. The color scheme of the vehicles is a blue body with a white top, roof, hood, and trunk. The lettering is in red, indicating People's Taxi on each side of the rear passenger doors and the rear bumper of the vehicle. At least one rate card is posted in each vehicle, and these rates are identical to all the other taxi cab companies currently operating in the city of Glendale. Gorgie Enterprises has been operating People's Taxi in the city of Glendale since 1992. The applicant has been in business since 2007. The president of the company, Petros Kashishian, has extensive experience in taxi cabs and other types of public transportation. People's Taxi is approved for renewal of an owner's permit to operate taxi cab vehicles within the city of Glendale. Proof of insurance will be subject to review and approval by the city of Glendale's Risk Management Office. People's Taxi has an extensive training program for its dispatchers, customer service representatives, and drivers. People's Taxi comprehensive training program for its drivers include procedures and policies, emergency procedures, driver and passenger safety, passenger assistant techniques, defensive driving, behind-the-wheel training, sensitivity, empathy training, and customer service. Gorgie Enterprise, Inc. has a drug testing program in place in all the existing taxi cab operations that meet the requirements of the state of California. People's Taxi proposes to continue to operate 30 taxi cab vehicles in Glendale. The applicant describes the vehicles as being hybrid 4-seat passenger sedans as well as a 6-seat passenger vans. The applicant provided a list Exhibit C. Currently, all the vehicles are within the 8-year age requirement. People's Taxi has a comprehensive vehicle maintenance and inspection program which ensures quality control and fleet longevity. No notices of violation has been issued to People's Taxi by the city of Glendale. The applicant provided 2 written professional references and 1 written personal reference. References were verified by staff and were positive. People's Taxi has been at the forefront of implementing a state-of-the-art computerized dispatch system, which includes reservations, routing, and scheduled trips. Other areas of special programs include the use of alternate fuels for the taxi fleet, guaranteed ride-home programs, provide service to ADA-eligible passengers, and 10% discount rates for senior citizens and disabled passengers. People's Taxi has launched a curb mobile application in all taxi cab fleet in the Tri-City area of Glendale, Burbank, and Pasadena. Currently, 83% of People's Taxi fleet is comprised of hybrid vehicles. People's Taxi is committed to replacing their vehicles in the coming years to meet the air quality goals of the city. The application request is to renew an existing owner's permit for People's Taxi. Therefore, public convenience necessity have previously been demonstrated in the issuance of an owner's permit for 30 vehicles permits to People's Taxi. In 2014, People's Taxi have maintained an all-time service ratio of over 92% service within 50 minutes or less, and continue to do so in 2015. The level of responsiveness is due to People's Taxi's state-of-the-art dispatch system as well as familiarizing with demographics of the city and a high level of customer service. In addition, People's Taxi has already replaced 25 out of 30 of the vehicles with Toyota Prius hybrid vehicles. The applicant's statement of public convenience and necessity is attached to Exhibit D. Currently, the city of Glendale has a taxi cap of 82. There is no more than 82 taxi cabs are allowed to legally operate in the city at one time, unless a TPC or city council alters the cap. At this time, 82 taxi cabs have received permits to operate in the city. Since People's Taxi wishes to renew permits to operate 30 vehicles and not increase their fleet in the city, and since they are good standing and have satisfied all conditions required per the Glendale Municipal Code for an owner's permit, staff respectfully recommends that the TPC approve the application for renewal of the owner's permit. A motion recommending approval is attached for the Commissioner's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for reviewing the staff recommendation. Commissioners, any questions or comments of staff on this, please?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I realized there's 30 vehicles, most of which are that have been replaced by Toyota hybrids. The 3 that's left to be changed, one of them happens to be a minivan. Are they going to be replaced with Toyota hybrids as well, or do you have any plans of keeping vans in stock, in inventory?
Good evening. My name is Ara Gambarian. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Gorgie Enterprises, DBA People's Taxi. There are plans to change. Currently we have 27 Priuses, 1 van, and 2 Crown Victorias.
Yes.
The 2 Crown Victorias will be changing. The 1 van will remain. And then there are 7 09 vehicles that, as soon as they come up for time being changed, those will be changed to also hybrid vehicles.
No, my question is, are you going to have any vans in your inventory?
Just the 1 van.
Just the 1 van?
Correct.
Do you think that's sufficient to service the needs of the community?
As of yet, it's been sufficient. We can work with other taxi providers when it's needed to refer the business. We have good relationships with all types of taxi companies to refer whenever it's necessary.
Because you own 30 out of 82 vehicles in the city, and for you to have only 1 van in stock, do you think it's adequate, Mr. Golanian?
Commissioner Kirkjian, we have not gotten any reports or complaints of inadequate number of vans from the citizens in the community, so I would say yes. Okay. Even if they were not, as the applicant indicated, they have access to other companies, taxi cab companies, that they can borrow their vans. But we believe 1 at this point is sufficient.
Great. Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
I have a
Please, go ahead.
quick question. It's actually not immediately directed towards this motion, but as a side question that I have, could you tell me what effect, how has your business been affected over the past few years with the increase of Uber drivers now in the city of Glendale?
I'm going to make a request, please, that we stay on the agenda item. We pick this up when you have a request to speak, and we could hit them with that too, or later, because otherwise it'll kind
Will
of.
there be a moment to speak, to have him speak to this issue?
The commissioners, absolutely, but I tend to agree with Commissioner Gonzalez. Since the motion is to approve the renewal request,
Certainly.
More than welcome to pose that question to the applicant after the motion either has passed or not.
And I'm just as interested in knowing the answer also. I just thought I would keep it. So we're in a process right now where we're asking if there are any more questions of staff on the recommendation. Okay, hearing none, Mr. Gunbarian had requested to speak on this agenda item. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Firstly, just thank you to the staff for all their hard work and the due diligence. And also, we agree with the report, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. So.
Okay. Any questions on the formal aspect of this public hearing from the commissioners?
One more question about the van aspect of it. The reason I brought it up because I see your service, Glendale Adventist, and another, what was that? Adult day healthcare in Glendale. Is your van equipped with ADA requirements for wheelchair handicaps? And since you service them, this 1 is enough. That's what my concern. That's my only concern. Otherwise.
At times, Mr. Kirkjian, when we haven't had enough capacity to service customers who needed it, on our own dime, we send a second or even a third vehicle at the charge of just 1, at the cost of just 1. So no matter what, we make sure we cover it. If we can't cover it with our vehicles, then we refer out to other companies.
The only reason I said I'm sensitive, my father, who just passed away last Wednesday, was in a wheelchair for the last 15 months. So, and he was in a facility and needed care. And I see the necessity that I never felt until recently.
Absolutely, yeah.
Commissioner Kirkjian, if I may, we also have the City of Glendale provides a dial-a-ride service. They are equipped with ADA facilities to accommodate disabled people.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Mr. Ganbarian? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ganbarian. And we have a draft motion on this item. I would entertain a motion, please.
I move to approve item number 5C1.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Kirkjian?
Yes.
Commissioner Yakubian? Yes. Commissioner Sahakian?
Yes.
Commissioner Bartuso?
Yes.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Yes. Okay, we finished that part of the public hearing section on 5A, B, and C. I think now Mauro had a question, if you'd want to put it back up again on the table, and Mr. Ganbarian would like to respond.
Sure. So let me just premise it by just saying, I cannot help by going through the list of requirements that the city has for taxi cab companies, seeing the efforts that the companies make in general to provide in terms of safety, drug testing, the emergency procedures, driver-passenger safety, all of these that go into it. I commend you for that. And then on the other side of it, we have a new phenomenon that's going on in Glendale and throughout the nation and the world, which is Uber. And I'd like to know how that's affecting you, if you could speak maybe from your own personal experience from the business and your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked, because this is my life now. On a daily basis, I ask as many people as possible what their take is on Uber, what their take is on taxi, and you get so many different answers from so many different walks of life. So I've got kind of a positive spin on it. Before I joined taxi, I read a quote from a young gal who works for Uber, and she said for the longest time, taxi was just relaxing, kind of changing prices as they chose and not really innovating. And now Uber and Lyft have really caused an absolute need to innovate immediately and do so both technologically and in the service we provide on a personal level. So yeah, business-wise, it's been very difficult, but it's either sink or swim. So we've chosen to swim. We're doing everything imaginable. In marketing, we call it a buckshot approach. Just shoot at everything, between advertising, training our people, every week, every month, talking about pure, good customer service, what that entails, and how to really drive it home, especially if people have gotten into bad habits, how to get them out of those bad habits. But more than anything, because the rideshare companies are so innovative, that's forced us to become much more innovative. We're doing so with, of course, the vehicles that we've got, but we've got other things coming down the pipe that will not only help us to compete, but actually do much better because of the things that you pointed out. So the rideshare companies, anyone can be a driver. You literally can go to downtown LA, get a driver's license if you choose, pay $25 and go through the inspection process, and you're a driver. To be a taxi driver, it's a much more difficult process, and there's a lot involved, especially drug testing and background checks through the DOJ. So we can really tout the things that help us stand out, that make us so much safer, and use that message to, quote-unquote, sell taxi in a much more effective way, especially in what I would call the second most important taxi market in the United States. So it's affected us a lot, but I would say, from my perspective, in a very positive way.
Very good to hear. Can I
please
just
proceed.
piggyback on that? And I'm not up to date, nor am I following exactly where Uber is in the battles that have happened with cities around the nation with Uber in terms of regulation and fights that are going back and forth. Is there anything that might be coming down the path for Glendale to begin to involve with, or to jump in terms of any legal discussion with Uber being in the city? I mean, again, for me, from my point of view as a commissioner, the one thing that is glaring for the people of Glendale is this understanding of just such a disparity between the amount of requirements, the taxi companies go through to make everything safe, from the background checks, et cetera, to, these people that are, sure many of them very good, but that uncertainty. So do we know, is there anything that's shaping up, or no, we're just...
I think the question is addressed to staff right now.
Whoever has an answer, I'd throw it out. I'm not sure who has the answer to that.
Just briefly, Commissioner Yakubian, as far as the city of Glendale is concerned, we have not heard of anything coming down the pipeline. I've read and I've heard there have been cases, legal cases against these ride-sharing companies, but the response has always been that they are regulated by the CPUC, and that essentially ties the local municipality, the city's hands in enforcing new requirements or laws within the city limits. I'll turning to my city attorney in case she has some more legal-related information.
Come up with anything yet. As far as some of the legal lawsuits that you've been seeing in the news lately, those mostly relate to how a driver is qualified, whether he is an employee of Uber or whether he is an independent contractor. And so that's kind of the battle that's being fought currently. But nothing in terms of regulation by municipalities of
no,
Uber drivers.
And nothing you've heard of any criminal acts or any attempt to tag a city as being liable for an act of an Uber driver?
No, none whatsoever that I've heard of.
Mr. Gunbarian or Mr. Gantis, either one of you want to respond to this dialogue?
Well, Mr. Gambarian, as you know, is the director of marketing for his company, so he's a marketing standpoint. I'm more the legal standpoint, having at one point been a lawyer. And Commissioner Yakubian, one of the points that was missed is, in addition to the drop in business, and your indication quite correctly that the drivers of Uber are not subject to the same background checks, the criminal the DOJ checks that we have to do. They're not required to do that. But in addition, there is a very complicated insurance matrix for Uber drivers, because they do drive their own cars. They have their own insurance when they're driving their car. There's a different level of insurance when they turn on the Uber button. There's a different level of insurance when somebody is in the car, and it's quite complicated, and it's relatively recent, and it's not as significant in terms of when there is not a passenger in the car. Then it is a much lower level of insurance, and if there's an accident, that level of safety from people is also compromised in some instances. Yet, as you've quite indicated, the municipalities, in this case, invoke a minimum amount of insurance, which is $1 million, which is rather extensive.
Let me ask you a question, Mr.
Please, Gunbarian.
Yeah, Gandarian. Does your drivers get W-2s or 1099s?
All of our drivers are independent contractors. They're 1099.
Okay. But the insurance is through the company?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question also, but any other questions or comments?
I do have a question. I'm happy, Mr. Gambarian, that you feel that it did impact you guys in a positive way. I just want to get your opinion on this. What do you think of deregulating the taxi cab industry to a point where it's up to par with the other service companies, Uber, Lyft? And you're absolutely right. I mean, they came in, they're on the cutting edge. Response time is 2-3 minutes. You can use an app, you pay for it, you don't even touch your wallet. And that forced the taxi cab companies to play catch up because they were in a comfort zone, no ifs and buts about it. And I'm glad. This is the first time I hear that from a person from within the taxi cab industry. And they're catching up. They're catching up. What is your opinion on now, as far as fairness, obviously, there is a disparity, no ifs and buts about it. It's much more stringent rules when it comes to the taxi cab industry. What if it's deregulated to a point where we have rules, regulations such as the CPUC?
That is a very packed question. We could talk about a lot of things involving that, but generally speaking, in a gradual tiered approach, of course that would be great, because now we're talking about evening the playing field. So the reason why taxi is roughly $3 a mile versus $1 a mile outside of surge pricing, which can be $5, $6, $7, $8 a mile, is because we do so much more to make the public safer. So if we did even out the playing field and both sides had to play the same, then we have a century of infrastructure. We've got people who know the cities, who do their job that as a profession. We would win hands down. We are very strong because we have a century of infrastructure. As far as what they're doing, it's if you look into rideshare a little deeply and you kind of dig into the numbers, they circulate. And that's why you're constantly seeing all this advertising to become an Uber driver or Lyft drivers, because people do it and they see they don't really like it. The wear and tear is really difficult in their vehicles, and they don't make as much money as they thought they were going to make. So they cycle out. So it's a revolving door. Literally, monthly, they're cycling out 30,000 new people and bringing in 30,000 new, because it's just not all it's cracked up to be. Whereas with taxi, you've got people who've been driving for 20, 30 years because, again, it's the infrastructure. We're set up right. Everything is regulated through us, so we know what we're doing. As far as how that would affect us, again, this is the second most important taxi market in the United States. We're doing the things that we need to do to future-proof and actually not just compete, but outdo the rideshare companies. So I know that once that does happen, we'll be doing really well.
And one more follow-up, if I may.
Please.
How is the bandit cab industry impacting you?
It's unbelievable. I know it's kind of a dark secret that not too many people like to talk about. If you just kind of put your ear to the street and just talk to people, especially younger people, about what these guys are really doing, it's not just a nuisance, it's a public menace. These people are not only overcharging, they'll actually pull up in front of our taxis. They've got a radio band that they can actually hear our dispatch calls, literally pull up in front of our taxis in broad daylight, steal our fares, which is just robbery, and then, just be blatant about it, cause all types of verbal altercations. And not only are they doing this, but they're growing and they're advertising. They're actually paying for Google pay-per-click ads. They've got Yelp pages. They've got Facebook pages. It's unbelievable how blatant it is. And I know that the city has been trying to work with us in alleviating this problem, but these guys they're pretty tough to catch, even though they're all over the place. But more than that, they're charging much more because their meters are probably purchased on the internet. They're not governed by weights and measures. So whereas we would charge $265, $270 a mile, they could be charging $450, $5 a mile. You never know who's behind the wheel, who they're taking. Or you mentioned that, Mr. Kirkton, you mentioned your father. Imagine someone shows up with a van and it picks him up from the hospital. The liability issues are through the roof. So it's a huge problem. It's one that we've been working on, but it's difficult to combat. So we'd like to work with you folks and the police department as well and do whatever we can. We actually have been. We ask our people to just observe and report, take pictures, do whatever they can, and we do what we can through social media and online as well. But very, very difficult.
This is for city staff. What's the penalty? Let's say you guys do a sting operation and you, I don't know if you do or not. I know other cities do. And if you're to arrest a driver who's a bandit cab driver, what is the penalty? What happens to the driver, to the vehicle, so he's not back on the street next day doing the same thing?
I've gone on stings in the past, undercover operations, and I don't know what the cost of the fines are. And I know they've been cited before, but I think the police would probably be able to answer.
Is it possible?
Commissioner Sahakian,
yes.
As I understand it, the city has no ordinance regarding this, unlike the city of Los Angeles, which does have it, has a fine of $1,500, but that this city has no penalties. They have been trying to enforce it, as Steve has indicated, excuse me, Mr. Rodriguez has indicated, and but basically they pick them up, shake them up a little bit, not literally, but scare them a little bit and put them back on the street. Because the
reason I bring it up, it happened to me. It happened to me and I was surprised, but it looked official. Like you said, there was a meter in the vehicle until I realized that something's fishy here.
And they
Obviously,
paint the
I didn't take
vehicles
it.
the same
it's
color?
painted, yeah. And if you're not a commissioner who's familiar, you'll just get in that cab. I see that more of a threat than honestly any other service company, because you really don't know who's the driver. At least CPUC is controlling the other companies. If we can have city attorney look into it and staff report at the next meeting of if there's no ordinance, if there are ordinances around the country, we need to have a very a strict ordinance, and we need to hit them in the pocket with a big penalty, confiscate the car, so we stop it. Otherwise, we're not gonna be able to fight it, and it is not fair. I mean, not only they're trying to compete with the other companies, which is making them better, and I'm glad to hear what you said. But now they have another front that they're battling, and the least the city could do is to assist them with a very tough ordinance. If we can please look into it and push that forward, I would appreciate it.
Yes, Commissioner Sahakian, we will definitely look into what other cities have done in the state and around the country with regard to bandit or gypsy cabs.
Appreciate it.
I can just add.
Excuse me, I believe Mauro had a comment. Or
I just wanted to say I'm completely behind what Commissioner Sahakian was saying. Again, that disparity, and the taxi cabs going through so many hoops to jump through to ensure safety to Glendale. The least we can do as a city is provide protection from that, and also enforcement.
Right.
Mr. Gontas,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add, Commissioner Sakin. As I understand it, the City of Los Angeles has a very, very detailed and heavy, good ordinance with respect to bandit cabs. So, as a suggestion, and on behalf of Tri-City, and I'm sure Mr. Gambarian, on behalf of people, we'd be glad to assist any input or anything that they feel necessary. Our numbers are there, and we're glad to assist.
Thank you. On a related question, if we're complete with the issue that's been just brought up here, I would like to inquire, I guess, to staff first. At every one of the recommendations, the second to last paragraph appropriately made reference to the number 82 as to the number allowed by the city council and by the TPC or city council. A little history, please, as to how that number's arrived at, number one, and number two, is there any need for looking at that being extended? And if those who were here from the taxi cab want to comment on that, I would appreciate hearing it. But first, I'd like to hear from staff on that.
Chair Gonzalez, I'll defer to Steve Rodriguez to provide a brief history of how we got to the 82.
The 82 taxi cabs?
And then again, and also, is there a need to look at that again in one way or
I
another?
might be able to help with the answer because I've been involved in it, and this question was paused about 50 times and discussed about 100 times.
So I'm sorry to bring it up for the 101st.
No, I think you need to be
new,
educated
so.
on it, absolutely, because when I came on the commission, that was my number one concern also.
I see.
Yeah, so well done.
So a little history, please.
You want to start, or you want me to take it?
Well, I know that the history, the resolution that was adopted in 1999,
Yes.
June 15, 1999, the resolution was adopted with 82 taxi cabs.
In 99?
In 1999.
Okay.
And then in that same year, they adopted Ordinance 5223, which gave the methodology of the determining the number of taxi cabs. And that methodology was when a new company or a second new company applied, they would get a 10% of, if it was approved, 10% of that number 82. But there hasn't been that many taxi cab, new taxi cab ownership applying in the last few years. But that's how they came up with the 82. They wanted, because it was getting to a point where it was increasing so much, they said, okay, and it was a hardship for these taxi cabs that were in business because of they weren't getting enough income, surviving, that they said, okay, we're going to have to limit this, take a good look at it, and limit it to an 82 taxi cab.
All right, so based on what I've heard, because there's nothing in writing, nothing concrete, was based on a need and necessity. So the companies had to show that they had a response time that was reasonable, less than 10 to 15 minutes. And based on that, and based on the number of existing permits on file, there was a determination to cap it at the number 88.
82.
So there's 82. So there's no science behind that.
Okay.
Now, since then, any company that came our way, and we denied a few,
Right.
correct? That came our way, the commission was very adamant and very strict on you really needed to show need and necessity, otherwise don't come to us. And now, obviously, with the additional service providers, honestly, I don't even see the need for any additional permits.
Comments from commissioners on this before we ask the...
The question, on an average day, how many pickups and drops a taxi does? You have 180,000 service during the course of a year, and or 160,000.
It varies greatly, depending on distance, anywhere from 4 to possibly 15 a day. So there's a wide variance.
And again, a day could be 24 hours.
I don't understand. What's a peak? Is it weekend, weekdays, holidays? Alex Theater has a big event, April 24th. What is it?
So part of what I do is I look for whatever's hot, whatever's an event, things that are going to be happening, for instance, yesterday, and I let my people know as far in advance as I possibly can to get them stationed out there, and I work with the event coordinators, whoever it is, to make sure that we're part of that. So it really just depends. If they are fortunate to get a very long trip, then of course they're going to have less rides that day, but oftentimes they'll get, 5, 6, 7 market calls and then maybe 3 or 4 longer calls. So it's really tough to say, but on average between, I'd say, 5 and 15.
Do you guys have regular cabs available at the hotels like the Hilton or Days Inn or Embassy Suites? Do you guys have any on-site available vehicles all the time?
We do, as per the hotel's requirements. Some hotels prefer not to have anyone out front, others do. So we have our people cycle from hotel to hotel to hotel, and then other taxi stands throughout the city.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just was kind of going on your comment about you see no need for adjusting that cap, but couldn't the opposite view be seen that by raising it, the city is then allowing more cleaner vehicles to shuttle people around with people who are trained, people who are going to protect the passengers through their education and training? Wouldn't you want more of those in if they wanted it? Obviously, they're not.
Do I see the need that we need to increase the number of permits?
Well, not the need. Not necessarily. That's not maybe for us to. That's not for us to decide. For staff to look into and investigate. But
I don't see the need. Just to be on record, I don't see the need to increase it.
And the detriment to that would be what, in your opinion?
Well, here's the deal. When you can get on the sidewalk and press an app and then get a vehicle in front of you in 3 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. I honestly don't see the need to add additional vehicles circulating and creating additional, increasing the gas footprint, the monoxide footprint, what have you. Now, we have the existing permits, and taxi cab industry is fighting hard, and they're doing, I think, a good job. And if we assist them with the deregulation, so they're on the same playing field, there's going to be plenty to go around servicing the public. So do we need to replace all existing vehicles with zero emission? Yeah, if it's up to me, they should be all electric, honestly, but they're getting there. It's very tough for them to completely change their fleets and still, try to make a profit. They're moving to hybrid, and I have no doubt in my mind once the electric vehicles become reasonably priced, they're not 40 to 50,000 each. I'm talking all electric vehicles. Then I'm sure they will get there because there's savings to the drivers. It's $400 or $500 in gas versus $5 in gas. That's my opinion. I don't know if I answered the question, but the question wasn't clear. So,
right.
So, do you gentlemen have any comment on the cap that we, as a city, currently have?
Well, I think as Commissioner Yacobi is indicating, she thought a raise might get more clean air vehicles. I think we have to keep in mind, Commissioner Yacobi, and we have independent contractors. These people, in a lot of instances, they're their own bosses. And if we add more people, then you're taking away, and I think Commissioner Sahakian earlier referred to it, as Uber is doing, you're going to start taking away income from the drivers. It's kind of a balancing act. And I think Commissioner Sahakian quite adequately pointed out that we are on a course, if you will, of getting in clean air vehicles, but you just can't do it immediately. These are very expensive vehicles, and we have to try to make a profit as well.
Mr. Gunbarian, do you have a comment on that? On the 82?
Yes, I actually kind of took that a little bit differently. I think what Commissioner Yakubian is trying to point out, and I might be mistaken, please correct me if I am, is if our vehicles are clean and rideshare vehicles aren't, wouldn't it be better to decrease their amount and increase the taxi amount?
That's a better way of saying it.
So that would help everything. I believe that's what
I mean, and not just the clean air footprint, but also, pedestrian safety, the education you're giving the drivers.
All around.
Having those type of drivers, that we have some sort of control over in terms of education and putting an imprint on that, on how we run our city, how we expect, people to drive, especially when you're taking people around. To me, that's much more, I'd rather see 5 more vehicles, taxi cab that okay, maybe they're not electric yet, but you know what? They've gone through training, they're drug-free, as opposed to the rideshare where, it's a crapshoot.
But how would you do that? Increasing the number of permits, how would you accomplish that? Why don't you come up with regulations to change the existing system to do what you're asking to do?
Well, that's true. But that's a longer-term solution. I would say the short-term would be something like that. I just... to me, I don't want to see the taxi cab industry in Glendale suffer as this adjustment and growing pains are happening with the rideshare and the competition, because I think that there's a lot of valuable things that are being done with the drivers, important, and I'm sure you'll be implementing new things as, any suggestions the city gives you that, is passed on to you. You've, generally speaking, they've been very cooperative in trying to react to our suggestions throughout the years. So, I mean, that's a nice relationship.
In one way, that's happening because taxi cab industries now, they're buying Uber permits and they're buying Uber drivers. So, in one way, it's happening, and that is increasing the number of vehicles out there. So, competition is taking care of that.
Do we have any feel, Rubik or others, on citizens making requests for more cabs in the city? Do we have any record of that? I'm just curious.
Chair Gonzalez, members of the Commission, we have not gotten any feedback.
Okay.
Especially, it's been a lengthy discussion when you have easily accessed the rideshare providers whom we cannot prevent to work within the city of, or even control them for that matter, because of the CPUC regulations, the far-reaching CPUC regulations.
It seems to me that the 82 number from 1999 came about more about the notion of making sure that those who already had applications and were doing a business would still be able to have it. They kind of, in a sense, control the competition. But it seems to me that that number isn't going to be visited again unless another cab company comes in and asks for 5 or 6 more, or asks, and then it gets revisited. It doesn't seem to be based on demand. I think we're probably saying the demand is being kind of tested when taxi cab, or let's call them cab operators, come to the city and want to give the other cabs some competition.
That's a very good observation, Chair Gonzalez, and that's how the process works, essentially.
And Mr. Chair, just for your information, I do recall the Commission 3 years ago looking at a company that came for additional permits, and the Commission's position was, we will consider additional permits if vehicles are all electric. You recall that? Yeah. If they are all electric and with some, would they have, I believe, some type of racks on them and what have you? Yes, I do. It was about.
Alec, you were going to say something?
Yeah, the question about the cap is something I've been a little bit curious about, and I brought up maybe a year or two ago. Was it seems like the requests for permits to operate come in staggered. We don't get them all at once. And so what if before us today, Yellow Cab came up to us and said, look, we have 17 vehicles today, but we really want 20. How would we how would we go ahead with considering that option if we know that there's a cap of 82 and we know that there are existing permits out there that will want to come back and request the same number of vehicles permitted? So I've always been curious about how we would tackle that. There may be a point where the taxi companies will come to us and say, look, we want more vehicles on the road. We see a demand for it. We can demonstrate that. I don't know how we're able to do that if they're coming in not at the same time, and we need to consider other companies' permit requests not at the same time. So I brought this up maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and there was no clear answer given to me. So I feel slightly uncomfortable voting yes on these motions, but it seems like this is the way things are done. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily comfortable with it. So that's something that I want to throw out there on the record again.
That's a good point. And Mr. Chair, if I may, how can we do it so they all end at the same time and they all need to reapply and come to the commission on the same day? Is that doable?
I think that would have a lot of merit.
Yes.
Relative to,
yes, thank you, Commissioner Bartusov, for mentioning that. When I was appointed director, that was on one of the list of things that I wanted to accomplish. And it makes complete sense. Yeah. And I had proposed something to staff. And one way of doing it is to reduce the number of years that are staggered, so a couple of the companies will not get the full permit period. It'll be a shorter period so that all five will coincide at the same time. But in the absence of not having received any applications in the last 3 years, and the one company that you mentioned we never heard back from, right. And losing resources and other priorities coming in the way, we put that in the back burner. But we'll bring it forth, we'll look at it and see if it's feasible to provide shorter period for those, I think, two companies. So that
their permits will expire, the ones that we approved today will expire in 5 years. So, and we did 3 companies, so we're left with 2 companies now. And if we can find out, and that's Bell Cab, City Cab.
Correct.
Right. When they expire.
When they expire, and to basically make sure they expire when theirs expire.
Right. Are the commissioners generally okay with that, subject to a more complete report?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And before that comes back to us, we can have some kind of analysis or understanding from the taxi companies whether or not, and based on various discussions, whether or not we warrant that it should be raised, stayed the same, or reduce the number.
You're talking about the total number of permits, you mean?
Okay, so Rebecca, I'm sorry, Steve. Yes, Steve.
You were asking the expirations on owner's permit. Owner's permit's good for 5 years. Bell Cab expires 12/16/18, and City Cab expires 12/2/19.
Okay, so the one that's up for renewal on the 18th, we need to renew it so it expires on the same day with the permits we approved today. I mean, it's something simple to do.
Commissioner Sakin will look into the feasibility of doing that.
Now, we don't need an ordinance for that, correct, to do that?
We have to, I don't have the recollection of the details of the ordinance, but we'll look into it and see if it requires amendment.
If it's needed, so we're ready for it when it happens. I mean, we have a couple of years, but
sure.
So we've had some good discussion on this topic. Any further discussion relative to our cab companies, as we would say it, and other providers? Okay, hearing none. Just one comment, Mr. Gadbarian, I really appreciate the positive aspect that you presented at the beginning of your presentation relative to the whole notion of competition and how things can get better and the way we do things in life. I just wanted to comment.
Right,
I appreciate that. It's a wonderful attitude.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Commissioners, we have one item left we have 2 items left. The 7th one is adjournment. Item number 6. Are there any comments, first of all, from commissioners and staff comments and updates? Can you please start that, Anush?
Yes, that item 6 is commission, staff comments, and updates.
Thank you for getting it on the record. I apologize. So do we start with commissioners or staff?
It's entirely up to you. I do have a couple of updates.
Please. Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, at our last meeting, I believe a couple of the commissioners, and we had a brief report from our City Attorney's Office on the ordinance for anti-bicyclist harassment, and you had requested a further review and analysis of the details of the existing ordinances within other cities. I'm just reporting to you that the City Attorney's Office is working on that analysis. They haven't quite completed the work. It is our hope that they should be able to provide an update at our next meeting.
Wonderful. And the date of that next meeting, please?
As it stands is June 27th. There is one item that we may have to call a special meeting of your commission next month, but we'll keep you updated on that.
You said June 27th?
June 27th.
That's the next regularly scheduled meeting, right, Anush?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I will not be on that day.
Okay. But there may be a special meeting before.
There may be a special meeting next month. As soon as we'll find out,
okay.
We'll let you.
If there's a special meeting, can we incorporate both meetings during one meeting?
As it stands, we don't have anything scheduled for June 27th. But if this item gets prepared by the fourth Monday in May, then we'll schedule it and we'll let the commissioners know in advance.
I think I see Maura was going to ask a question. You want to know what the topic is?
I'm sorry?
The topic that he's talking about?
The
anti-bicyclist harassment ordinance.
No, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other updates?
Yes. Mr. Chair, you had inquired about the improvements that we have completed at the Mountain Avenue and the Freeway 2. I wanted to report that we have added an additional carpool lane to the eastbound off of Mountain onto the freeway, primarily to provide some queuing capacity because of all the cars or the vehicles that queue up on the outside lane closer to the college. That hasn't proven to be as great improvement as we had hoped for. We have still, as you have observed, there's more queuing. Our goal, and we have contacted Caltrans on a couple of occasions, we wanted to turn off the sign that says no turn on red during the morning peak hours.
7 to 9.
Right, and they are vehemently against doing that.
Rubik, I'm sorry, let me, this is the location again? I'm trying to, this is eastbound?
Eastbound going up the hill on Mountain,
okay.
Trying to get on the freeway.
To south?
Correct.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you're still there's still issues with the queuing up, you're saying? With that?
It has improved to a degree, but it's not as good as we would like it to. So there's still queuing. It's not as bad as before.
And is it your assessment that it's because of failure to understand the signage?
The signage says no right turn, so everyone has to wait till the westbound coming down on Mountain Avenue from Camino San Rafael.
There's never anyone there.
Exactly.
I shouldn't use the word never. My mother told me never to use never. Once in a while, hardly ever anyone there. So everyone queues in significantly.
Absolutely. So number one, our goal was to remove that sign completely. Caltrans, at least at the staff level, are against it. Mm-hmm. And then we had suggested a changeable message sign that says, in case there is no vehicles turning that direction, you may turn red, but They didn't want to do anything with that. So my next effort is going to be to elevate this request to the management level at Caltrans and see if we can make them remove that sign or find
I have
another
a
way.
suggestion, if I may. I like the idea of the CMS sign, but it could be confusing. Why can't we put a Q detector for the westbound to southbound move and let it activate a dedicated phase, a right turn arrow, maybe double arrow, for the eastbound to southbound on-ramp?
Right. That's an excellent idea, Commissioner Sahakian, but Caltrans...
Oh, it is Caltrans, that's right.
So the thing that's a bit, I really do, Ubik, appreciate the update on this, because I think I came on the commission when we started some discussion, but primarily Mauro brought it up, and I piggybacked on it.
Yes.
And when we got reports back, it was my understanding that a decision had been reached with Caltrans, except it's just that it took too long to implement it. Now I'm hearing that, unless I'm hearing this incorrectly, that it sounds like a notion was put on the table and they're not in agreement with it. So I was under the understanding, maybe inappropriately, that a decision had been reached and that it had just taken too long to implement because of their priorities up and down the state of California. So what am I missing, please?
Mr. Chair, I apologize if I had anything to do with the misunderstanding. But as everything that moves through Caltrans takes a long time to process, that was accurate. What we managed to coordinate with Caltrans and get their approval to do was to add another carpool dual lane to the existing one, and we had to do some striping within their jurisdiction. That took a long time, but that's what got accomplished.
The striping in their jurisdiction, isn't it not in the city's jurisdiction?
No.
You're talking about on the ramp?
Right before the ramp, just before getting on it. That's all.
Because there are many
Caltrans
people that use the lane not against let's say the college area.
Right.
The other one who are not in carpool, they just turn it.
Well, that's an enforcement issue that we have to deal with.
Right,
through the
and that's
police
usually done when there's about 15 cars queued in.
I know, but the ultimate, the best solution would be to widen those ramps.
Yeah.
And that requires a great deal of money and, again, coordination with Caltrans.
It would seem that the comment that you mentioned, Commissioner, would have some merit because it's all about the traffic coming on Mountain going westbound.
Yep.
That normally isn't there at 7 to 9 in the morning for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually vacant.
Well,
and you
that,
sit there,
that
people
whole
sit there and
signal
sit there, then they
timing
just take it.
between the northbound on-ramp, the southbound on-ramp, the signal timing, the offset is completely off.
Yes.
And by the time you get a green light to proceed eastbound, the green arrow onto northbound, the 2, turns red. It just traps you. There's a trap right there. It just makes absolute no sense.
You know, it's all, Caltrans. I don't know if we're going to make a wish list for them. I've got some guardrails and some other things I'd like to put on it. But that definitely getting on that 2 South, and then, such a unique, it's such a really difficult traffic pattern with, cars flying straight going down the 2 South, some trying to turn into a lane that's headed towards the 134 east and west at a dead stop. So you have cars, going 60 trying to squeeze into a dead stop traffic, and it's all kind of going back to that traffic or the on-ramp light merging into the 134 west. I mean, have they looked at that? Is that something they can address? You can tell them, hey, we're getting a lot of concerns, complaints, because it's not effective. Has anyone been on that?
I've seen
that journey.
Yeah.
It's not good, and it's dangerous. But
to the 134, the transition.
Going from the 2 South, getting on that mountain, on ramp to get onto the 2 South, and then having to deal with the 2 South, 134 East, and 134. Everyone's trying to get to the 134 West, and it's causing a terrible thing. But I mean, that's obviously beyond your control. But if there's some way that we can reiterate to them that that's a big problem, and then the Glendale.
Actually, if I may,
please.
Alan Loomis made a presentation about our wish list. I raised that issue, asked them to make it 2 lanes turning to 134 west, exactly where you pointed, for the traffic to flow much quicker into 134. That was on the wish list that I suggested at the time. Also, but the problem with that is, as soon as you go into 134, everybody's trying to exit Brand Boulevard and Brandon Central. There's a huge backup over there. How do you deal with that? So,
Commissioners, as you know, Caltrans' strategy is to control vehicles getting on the freeway system at the expense of backing up traffic onto city streets. It is my intention to schedule a meeting one-on-one with the Caltrans chief. We have suggested to even take over the maintenance and operation of the traffic signal systems at the on and off ramps. That hasn't gone over very well at the staff level, but we shall see. So if that happens, we'd like to adjust the lights on Brand, on Central, on Glendale Avenue, all of those intersections.
Because eventually I don't know if some of the Measure R2 money, if it goes through, can be spent on these issues, but regionally, if we're going to improve mobility, it's a must to implement some of these projects.
Exactly.
So
I was just going to, I'm sorry, Rubik, the 134 eastbound at the Glendale Avenue exit, once exiting and once at Glendale Avenue, the lanes to turn either right, you have the middle lane that has the option to turn both ways, and the far lanes to turn their respective way. There's no lane markings on the street. So what's happening is people are turning and not necessarily knowing where to go because there's often a backlog to get onto the 134 West. What did you, that's again Caltrans?
Commissioner Yakubian, it is partially within the jurisdiction of Caltrans. However, we have completed design. We do have an encroachment permit to work within their jurisdiction. We have hired a contractor. We are going to the City Council to award their contract in 2 or 3 weeks. We need to, and we have planned to revamp the entire traffic signal system within that area, which will greatly improve traffic flow. There's a lot of work, street work and traffic signal upgrades that need to be done, including all the lane markings.
So I understand back to Mountain and the 2 going south, that on-ramp, I understand you're going to go to a higher level now at Caltrans and talk about further. Do you concur with the notion that the traffic that comes from that are heading west on Mountain that want to turn left, it's very minimal, and I don't know whether you do traffic counts or whatever, but when you compare the number of cars that stack up, I just hope there's no accident there. And then there's very few coming, from up in the hills there. And why they're 7 to 9, you cannot turn right. I think that's the big issue that has to be looked at.
I agree, Mr. Chair, and that's what we're going to present to Caltrans chief.
With a proposed solution or just a dialogue? I mean, how are we approaching
our
this?
proposed solution will be to remove that restriction.
Oh, okay. So initially, when we talked to them, it was only to do the alignment, not to remove it.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I see. Any other updates? Thank you for those. If you have others.
Absolutely. The other update was an inquiry from Commissioner Bartrousseau about the park and ride facility at Harvey and Wilson. We have completed design. We will provide seats, and including a bike rack and trash cans, and a wider area for the riders to be able to stand on. The design is complete. We're currently soliciting cost proposals from contractors. So that should be moving forward in the near future. Commissioner Bartrousseau had also inquired about the commercial waste collection franchise. The City Council last month approved the award of a contract professional services agreement with SES Engineering to look into recommendations to provide to your board, if you like, and the City Council as to the implementation of a franchise program to limit or reduce the number of commercial waste collection providers, private haulers that we have currently in the city. Staggering over 50 private haulers currently operate within the city of Glendale. Yes, we'd like to reduce that for a number of reasons. So the recommendation will be several options. We could divide up the city of Glendale into different zones, like what the city of Los Angeles currently went through, and then designate those zones to the 5, 6, or 7 private haulers, or the city of Santa Monica, who took over the entire commercial waste collection within the city, and the city provides that service. So those are the options that they will be looking into. We haven't finalized the contract. It's in the works, but it's in progress.
Can I make a...
Alex, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about it. And just to... and just to give the commissioners more background, the reason I brought this up and I felt like it was important for this commission to consider it is it's not simply just a waste management thing, which is not in our jurisdiction, but it is a congestion / traffic flow circulation concern of mine that I had. I just recently moved outside of downtown Glendale proper, but when I lived there and lived adjacent to an alley, there were so many trucks coming through, servicing various different buildings and creating so much noise. It was a nuisance and creating a lot of traffic and obviously pollution. So I looked into what the city of LA did just a couple of years ago, where they basically created sub-monopolies where just one company was servicing a certain area, making it more efficient, limiting the number of trucks on our roads, that kind of thing. So I felt, and I don't know if it needs to be formally made or not, but to have that request come to the commission so that we can consider it and give a recommendation, I think it's very relevant and appropriate for this commission to do.
Any objections for commissioners on that request?
No. Actually, I agree with Mr. Bartrov's assessment. Thanks for bringing it up. And when I complete one of my buildings, and all of a sudden I went over there one morning, there was a trash bin, unannounced, was parked on it. It was dropped off on the street. And before we complete construction, I called the company that, what's going on? Well, don't you need a trash bin? No. And I have a number of tenants there, and what we do is we designate trash bins, and all of a sudden, a salesperson goes in there, talks to a tenant, they replace the bin, and you have multiple, as he said, in an alley. Now, if it's in an industrial center, there's multiple trash bins, which creating traffic, and they have a tendency of annoying parked vehicles or moving vehicles in a parking lot. So I really agree with, if we can create sub-monopolies, be less traffic, less annoyance on business operators and centers whenever they come over there to pick it up, be more routine. I met with, at a casual meeting, one of trash company owners on a different agenda, and we were talking. I said, on one of my buildings we use City of Glendale, said the City of Glendale has one of the highest taxes. You're better off on using on specific property Glendale Water and Power, because they're less expensive on certain products they have. The fees that they pay, who collects it? To what city budget they goes on whatever?
Commissioner Kirkjian, if the fee for waste collection?
Yes. On those 3 or 5 yard trash bins.
For the bins,
for
or
the bins.
for collection?
For the bins. For the trash, there's a city tax, he said, on certain properties. It's better if you use City of Glendale, which that's what I do. On others, I use private entities, private waste companies.
But the City of Glendale, our integrated waste management, provides those trash bins,
yes.
The oversized trash bins. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, and the fee goes towards the collection services.
But the taxes, I guess there's additional taxes that's collected or private operators pay to City of Glendale to be in business in City of Glendale.
But unfortunately, that's one of the problems of over 40 private haulers that we have in the city. We collect 0 fees.
Wow.
They currently do not pay any fee.
I was told that we're one of the highest around town.
It's free.
Interesting.
I'm going to change
Because,
Go into that business, right?
because my question was, what's happening to the money, and if we do sub-monopolies, how do we charge them? How do we rate that?
So we are proposing a new fee for private haulers to work within the city of Glendale as part of the citywide fee ordinance that will be presented to City Council in the next coming weeks.
So on this agenda item, Rubik was kind enough to start off by giving updates. Do you have further updates?
I have one more, if I
Please,
may.
please. No, first of all, we really do appreciate these updates,
Absolutely.
even if it does remind us of something we may have forgotten. It is very helpful.
Not to do that.
It is very helpful that you do this,
Absolutely.
and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, it's been a while since we have talked about pedestrian safety within the city of Glendale. It's been very high on your list of priorities. I'm happy to report that our Community Development Department, as you recall, we went through the selection process. They have 2 consultants to work on a citywide pedestrian safety plan. They are ready to go to work. And if you recall, we have a pedestrian safety task force. 2 of your commissioners are members. My plan is to convert that task force into a working advisory group, perhaps with a smaller number of members who will work very closely and in conjunction with our consultant and Community Development Department and our traffic engineers to come up with solid recommendation that will be part of the plan to be presented to your Commission as well as the City Council for adoption and implementation.
That's good to hear. I was not aware. We have 2 commissioners that are on that group right now,
Mr.
besides
Chair.
Mauro. Who is the other?
Commissioner Yakubian and Commissioner Kirkjian.
Oh, okay, good. That's good.
Actually,
Okay, so excuse me just one second. No further updates from staff? Anything else?
No further updates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now, questions or updates from commissioners, please. I'll start over here.
A couple of issues. Street name signs. Brand Boulevard, Glen Oaks, completely faded. You can't see it. And it just,
Glendale
for a city that's so vibrant and thriving, and we're building all over, build high rises going up, it's just not the right thing.
Mid-rises.
Mid-rises.
Yeah. Big difference.
Do we have a maintenance program, or do we people need to complain or spot them and then call them in?
Commissioner Sahakian, consider it done.
Okay.
Wonderful.
As a matter of fact, we have known about this issue for a while. Unfortunately, these cost quite a bit of money. But we have put a program together. We have estimated the cost. We will present it as part of next year's budget to City Council. Our estimate is $420,000 just for the downtown area. They're very, very expensive.
Is it the sign that's fading away too quickly?
Especially the south-facing signs. Yes, exactly.
And should we look into a better sign maybe? Or I'm sure you guys are doing it.
Right. We have, there's the reflectivity requirement. There's a new guidelines in place that now suggesting larger fonts that we will try out. I know it seems awfully big, but some of these we can either change the boxes, the containers, or just the nameplates. The nameplates obviously are cheaper, but they don't last long.
Right.
And our goal is as many as we can to replace the lighting with LEDs.
These are the high-level signs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The other item that I have, I brought this up before. I know the city does not have any rules as far as what time we should do construction on our major highways. And this was not a major highway, Mountain Avenue, about a couple of months ago. AM rush hour traffic, 7 a.m., tree trimming contractor, full closure at La Zanja. People going to college, it was backed up for half a mile. They were making a right turn to Ethel, making another left turn. You obviously have stop signs. And it was complete gridlock. I'm sure half of the students didn't make it on time. Now, if we're going to do something like that, then I suggest some traffic officers at the key intersections on the detour route to accommodate the flow of traffic. But the right thing to do, honestly, would be let's let the students, the AM rush hour, finish at 8:30 a.m. and then do a full shutdown. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, Commissioner Sahakian, you're absolutely right. As you know, contractors typically start at 7 a.m. They want to be done by 3:30. But under the circumstances where we've worked close to the schools or colleges, we have required contractors to start later after the rush hours.
Okay.
They don't like it, but we have.
So this just fell through the cracks then?
Yes, I'm pretty sure we'll look into it for sure.
Can I?
And they're a great contractor, by the way. They do a great job.
Yeah, it's West Coast Arbors more than likely,
yeah.
yes.
All right, please, any?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask about the hit and run that occurred down the street. Any updates? What happened to that old man? I mean, I know he died, but the driver, was it caught or not caught? I didn't want to bring it up.
$50,000 reward.
There's still a $50,000 reward for any kind of information. The case is not closed, so I can't disclose the details of it, unfortunately, at this point.
I think there was an article said they found someone, but I don't know.
I wasn't privy to that, so I'm not sure. But they will
Anything
catch.
else, Ara?
Yeah.
I hope so. And the next question I have, Will, in case regarding the trash, will roll-offs be affected too, or they'll be free, anybody can operate if we regulate the trash bins?
For commercial side?
Yes.
That's more of a council question that should be brought up at council meetings versus in the transportation commission.
I'm trying to get the connection with the transportation and parking.
Yeah, well, suffice to say there will be far less number of private haulers, and it'll be more streamlined to regulate their work within the city of Glendale.
The reason I say that because you may want to have more than 5 people, but maybe if they come over here and pay a fee per truck to get a city operating permit, that's the way you can regulate them, how many trucks or how many bins they can operate, just like a taxi does.
Well, the preference would be to have haulers and base it on the number of haulers, because we also have a number of state and federal regulations that we have to follow. And it makes it extremely hard when there are 52 of them working in the city and they don't have the proper paperwork. So the preference would be to limit them to a handful and no more than that.
Are there any other thoughts or comments?
No, thank you.
Mauro? No, okay. I just have one quick one, please. And maybe other commissioners already know this, but I did read an article that we have now an east-west rolling stock connecting. Was that a trial, or is it actually functioning now? And if it is, could you just tell us where it is so we can, or I can try it out? And this goes from from west to east, and it supposedly ties in with the goal line in Pasadena.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's absolutely correct.
It's functioning.
It's functioning. The trial period started in March 6th, I believe. The stop in Glendale, it's at Sanchez and Good by Brand Boulevard. But Councilmember Najarian has introduced a motion to make it permanent, if not replace it with a light rail system. But on the trial basis, they will be able to determine the ridership. And from what I've heard, it's been great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good news.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. So I would entertain a motion. Oh, first of all, thank you, commissioners, for the lively discussion and thoughts that we had, especially relative to the cab drivers and other items. And again, I do appreciate you following up on recent updates.
My pleasure.
So I would entertain a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
No roll call necessary.
I'm sorry? No roll call. Oh, okay. So all those in favor, please stand for adjournment.